Xgrowth has helped B2B tech companies design campaigns that open doors in their strategic target accounts, roll out targeted ABM programs, scale ABM programs, and select the right tool and tech stack for a successful ABM initiative. These are all things Xgrowth has helped their clients with. If you're interested to learn how Xgrowth can help your firm's ABM program, check out Xgrowth at xgrowth.com.au. That's xgrowth.com.au and chat with the APAC ABM agency.
What's up, marketers, and welcome to another episode of the Growth Colony podcast. I'm Liza from Xgrowth to tell you that each episode we bring in B2B leaders to chat about how you can achieve those everyday wins in the marketing world. On today's episode, we welcome Stephanie Deschamps, Director of Marketing, APJ at Boomi, a category-leading, high-growth global SaaS company with the largest customer base in their space. With our host, Shaheen Hoda, Stephanie is going to share with us some insights and best practices around account-based marketing.
Super excited to chat to you, Stephanie. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. So we're talking about programmatic ABM, and this is probably one of the areas of ABM that is least developed in the APJ space. I'd love to hear from your side, what are some of the most important ingredients when it comes to rolling out a one-to-many or programmatic ABM program here?
Okay. First of all, maybe I'm surprised you say it's the least developed because when you say ABM, usually in APAC you will think one-to-many, and then if you speak to a European marketer, it will think one-to-one, which is more like a key account approach and very personalized. And ABM one-to-many will be really reaching to a large quantity and trying to reach out to new business. So when you go into new business, ABM one-to-many is the right approach. So in both cases, anyway, the approach to the idea is to identify a list of accounts that will become your selected company and that you go after, and you will concentrate your efforts and kind of cut through the entire white space of the whole business available in APAC. And so these accounts becomes your universe. You want to reach out to, you want to open doors, engage, you want to convince them, you want to grow your footprint into. And we're focusing those resources on that smaller group of accounts, even though we're talking about one-to-many, you increases your likelihood of surrounding those accounts and being seen and being heard by those accounts. So I would say that the first ingredient is that focus. Like utilize focus, even though it's one-to-many, you still cut through that massive amount of that whole entire white space. And then I would also say then, secondly, that the account-based marketing could actually be called account-based targeting. And the reason why I say that is that it shouldn't be just marketing's job. It should be the entire demand gen group that should focus and gather around account-based targeting, because you increase the likelihood of having more touch points, more accounts engagement, speaking to several persona. If your channel, if your BDR, if your marketing are all reach out and working on the same set of accounts. So that second ingredient will be a coordinated approach. Now that still actually could be very valid for ABM, also one-to-one. So where the difference is for ABM one-to-many is that you try to have that programmatic approach, but still having a level of personalization, because the whole point is of limiting your focus on a certain numbers of accounts, even though you talk about 2,000 or 3,000 accounts, is that you can have an understanding of who they are. You have insights of what are those accounts, which industry they are in, what they potentially going to be interested in. So you can personalize your approach. To make it programmatic, you could, for instance, regroup them. So you will regroup the account, for instance, by industry. You could also simply use that list of accounts as a segment and plug that list under established go-to-market approach that you have. And if you look at the contact level, you could regroup those contacts by type of persona or splitting business decision makers and end users. So the third element will be that personalization at scale, which is the key difference with the ABM one-to-one.
I mean, I love that. I love that you talked about some very realistic numbers, and I mean, what I mentioned that it's probably the least mature type of ABM. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And I completely agree with you that when you turn to marketers in Europe, they talk about one-to-one, and when you talk to the marketers in North America, they majority talk about one-to-many. My experience has been that sometimes the targeting capability of the advertising platforms are not as mature in the APJ space, and therefore, some of those strategies that are coming from the US don't necessarily, whether it's maybe IP targeting or whatever it is, it's really hard to do that in Indonesia, or it's very challenging to do that in Malaysia sometimes. That's what I was referring to. Is that something you see as well, or you don't see that data challenge when you're looking at the market?
I absolutely do see that data challenge. No, so data is the goal, but it's also the pain, right? It's just trying to find that data. That's often the first issue we have. So if you think of let's start with, how do you get to that data? At the end of the day, what you want is a list of accounts, right? So you start with, you have your total addressable market that is defined by analysts, and then you have a sense of the business potential. So we're talking here about numbers of revenue. So then you add a layer of which geography I'm working on, which you limit it to the product and then you can add your market share. You end up by your, what they call the service obtainable market, but you still have an estimated revenue. You still do not have that list of account that you can act upon. So then if you, with that as a SOM in mind, the first tangible data is to look at a list, and you go to a third-party vendor and you give them some firmographic. So they will be, there's nothing new here. You talk about company size, revenue, industry, and then maybe for your contact, you're going to select job title and department once you can go into acquiring the contact. Most of the company will also have a go-to-market segment, and then potentially, more likely, your global team has set up an ICP, which is based on firmographics, and then and in B2B tech where I'm working at, we'll have a layer of technographics. Actually, a lot of companies could use those technographics, so which ERP that company is using, or depending on where you try to hit them, which kind of technology you try to sell them. So that gives you can go to a third-party data vendor and saying, okay, those are my large criteria, which kind of list of accounts. They will be relevant. Those American database provider will be relevant for very large enterprise and for public listed company, and you will find the information because it's public information. Indeed, when you go into, I want to go into Indonesia or Japan, and you go into another language and even another type of character because you need to have it in Kanji, so it's just impossible to find. But even simply Australia, you cannot imagine how difficult it is to find a proper database to cover Australia, non-public listed company, government type of entities. It's very difficult. So you need to have then kind of almost one by one finding your database provider, your local database provider that can help you to design that list of accounts and enrich the data as well. So yeah, it's not easy. The other thing I would look at, and then this is then you have fixed your list of accounts, right? But it's still really broad. The other thing that I would, and it's still you don't have much information based on that. The other thing I would look at is that also look at your convertible audience, the audience that has convert with you. So that comes from your first party data, because that will tell you the characteristic of who is converting. What are the touch point that you need to have, the journey to conversion, what content do they consume? But you also very dependent on your own data, garbage in, garbage out. The more your CRM is accurate and the more your information your sales or your customer success have put into the CRM CRM, the better you understand. If they just said, if your contact in your CRM is someone from procurement, that doesn't really tell you who they had engaged with and who was the persona to reach out to. So that's actually also really helpful once you have that list of addressable audience to go into, okay, what should I work on for a lookalike type of audience that will be more likely to convert? And then you go into that list of addressable audience and then and you kind of search for similarities, and you also design that path of user journey. And then the third thing I would look at is going back to that third party type of data. When you have it, but again, it's very linked to English speaking market, is adding to a mix is the intent data. So you will look at what are those company doing outside of your own premises and what are they searching for, and you look at the topic that are relevant for your solution that you're selling and try to getting that information on which are the company that are raising, which are, and it's all based on account, right? So it's all based on IP addresses, but the intent data, the intent topic will be most of the time in English. So you won't have Japan, you won't have Korea, you won't have China. That is not going to work. But at least from an English speaking market, you have a certain sense of it's adding an additional layer of prioritization. It's really super helpful. It's also usually low hanging fruit because the people in that company are currently searching right now. So there is a research happening, and the provider that you will need to go for is the provider that probably has the broader network. I'm not going to name here, but some provider have you going to give you intent data, but based on their own network. Okay, fair enough, but it's probably too small. You probably need to have a provider or several providers then to compensate for that have a really large network. Then they can say, well, we've seen, they won't tell you where people have had those intent signals or where they have consumed the content, but the broader it is, the better it is in this case.
I have a feeling I know who you're talking about with regards to having their own content, but let's not get into that. No, I love that. You've summarized it so well in terms of layer of tasks that need to be done, and again, adding additional information, the data components coming from multiple different parties. Have you seen, I'm sure you talk quite a lot with your counterparts in the US. Have you seen a difference, or do you have a different approach when it comes to programmatic ABM compared to your counterpart in the US for APJ?
Well, the US will have a much bigger base, right? So for the US account base, ABM for one-to-many will be really, really huge. So they probably will need more than I do that layer of intent. But the reason why I would go for the layer of intent, it's because I have less money and I need to go quickly to the end result. So I need to prioritize based on what's more likely to convert. And also because I've seen it working. But yeah, so where I would have probably in APJ, I would have a base of 2,000 accounts, maybe 3,000. They will have a base of in the 10,000, 20,000. So we really don't talk about the same type of. EMEA will be similar to APJ, though. If you look at the entire universe, depending on what you're selling, right? But if you look at the entire universe of Australia, if you have 4,000 accounts, you're probably kind of really talking about the entire universe of enterprise that you can reach out to, or companies that you can target in Australia that have a certain size to sell your product, or to actually sell our technology. And it's probably half of that in reality. So yeah, we're talking about, I think it comfortably 2,000 account, 3,000 account is really like a good base for APJ, but depends on what you're selling. I'm in B2B tech, so that has an influence. Got
it. One of the other things that you see people talk about quite a lot, and I don't know if we can touch on this, is there's a lot of conversation, a lot of data in terms of median and average number of spends when it comes to one-to-one campaigns, when it comes to one-to-few campaigns. Are there any numbers that you could share around that for the programmatic in terms of in terms of going about doing budgeting for these? What are your thoughts on that front?
You mean how much will I spend in programmatic ABM?
Yeah, are there any kind of information that you can share on that front?
Well, I can certainly talk about percentage, but I will do 100% ABM. I will ABM one-to-many to everything I do, because being in APJ, usually your dollars are scarce. It's not that we can like overspend. I mean, we have to be really mindful of how much we're spending our dollars. So we usually limited in terms of numbers of activity we do. But I will use ABM really more as a account, like one-to-many, as a kind of almost as a segment in everything we do. And we use that same list of account for digital activities, for field event activities, for maybe not so much for partners, because in partner marketing, you want to open a bit more to what they can bring to the table. So be probably less restrictive on partner marketing. But with you, and that's the idea of what I was saying earlier, you want to surround those accounts, right? So you want to be everywhere you could be. You want to target the same accounts and make sure that you become visible. So you'll be on social, you will be on digital channel, you will be on videos, you will be, and that's for digital, you will go into sponsoring events, you will be into more local event, local association event, still using that same list of accounts that you define. What I would do is revising that list of accounts, probably on a quarterly basis, but I will put, this is how I'm telling the team, just like go 100% ABM. And if your vendor doesn't have that coverage of your list of accounts, then open it to more based on what they could offer.
Interesting. Yeah. So I can totally see how that becomes a little bit hard to put a dollar figure on it, because there's all these other activities, not just your kind of ABM advertising component that is focused on that, but there's all these other aspects from field, from demand gen, from all these that are also focusing on those accounts. So I completely get that.
And that's what becomes your ABX.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, the experience component comes out of that. Got it. We've talked about tech. We've talked about intent data. We've talked about using data providers. Is there anything else around the tech stack for running a successful programmatic ABM program that you would recommend to somebody?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with your data, right? And so it's the integration of your data. It's just like getting all the data points together in a structured way that you can read it. So it's actually using your existing tech stack, which will be your CRM that needs to be connected to your MarTech, that needs to be connected to your AdTech. They need to be connected. Some places you would have data warehouse, but it's probably a bit too structured. But think of a customer data platform is you want to have a customer 360 view. And it's going to be difficult to have that view sitting on your different applications. So the ideal world, if you can, you would like to have that one view of the customer centralized at one place. So that will give you the customer 360 view. But the key to that is also to organize that data and to clean that data before you put it together. Otherwise, your data will not be structured in the same way and will not be readable in your different application when you kind of send it back if you want. So you could kind of think of a master data management, or what if it becomes maybe a bit more technical, but in a lighter version will be a master data hub, which is kind of an index to structure that organization of your customer data. So they're basically going to say, well, at that line in the marketing automation tool, this is how you identify the customer, and this is where you identify the customer in your CRM. This is how you identify your customers in your AdTech and your finance and etc. Tools and application. And you end up by creating that unique customer ID and kind of the few criteria. And then you're probably going to have like a few, think Excel, right? I mean, it's not an Excel, but like you will have additional field that will be for things that are specific for CRM and specific for finance. But the kind of core, 50 component will be structured in a similar way. And that will give you a view, and with that unique ID of your customers internally, everyone will know who you're talking about. Similarly, when you speak to you go to your third party, your media, and you say, I want to speak to Optus. Well, how do you say Optus? Well, do you use a DNS number if you have access to the NRAS rate, or you use the domain name, right? So you need to have that unique ID internally. When you integrate, so talking about that third-party enrichment data into your CRM, again, you need that integration upfront. So you have a lot of third-party provider that already have developed those APIs that are to common CRM. So you will have it to Salesforce. It's a very common CRM. Then we'll have done the same on the media buying side. You have your DSP, it's platform connected to Bombora and LinkedIn for intent data. Your LinkedIn lead gen form is directly connected to your Marketo, your Eloqua. So you when you do media buying and you have the opt-in. So those connectors are sometimes pre-built or already developed by those MarTech and tech stack application. So just a caveat to that is here we're talking about the account, and we need just to be mindful when you add the layer of the contact, because as we all know, we need to be careful about the personal data. So maybe send it first to your CRM, and then your marketing automation or your marketing database will filter when there is no opt-in for the contact level.
Of course. And I was gonna ask about that, right? Because a lot of platforms are curated for leads versus accounts, and I don't know what your thoughts are, but I think it's also very important to take that into consideration when you're building the data hub that you talked about. That you have an account lens on when you're looking at these, so that you don't all of a sudden disperse the leads from one account, but they're all over the shop.
Yeah, they're all over the shop. And if you think of the marketing automation tools, think marketing, right? Been developed probably 15 years ago with that lead source in mind, not that account model in mind. And companies are changing to that lead source model, to that account model, but it's a big change. It's a profound change, but that's also allowing us to work together with the other department and not just saying, oh, this is my lead and where is my lead, and then people are going to change the lead source if they can. No, it's an account. We're all working together towards the accounts, going back to coordinated effort, focus. Everyone is around the same account. And you can do it in a programmatic way in the one-to-many, and you will do it in a very personalized way in the one-to-one.
Got it. Stephanie, I want to ask you one question before we go into rapid fire questions. And that is, dealing with and talking to a lot of B2B marketers, what are some of the mistakes you've seen marketers make when trying to implement a one-to-many ABM program?
There's a few that I made myself, so I can talk about those, and I'm happy to share it.
Let's do that.
The first one, and typical one you will hear, is that you do that beautiful list of account, and then you say, hey, BDR, hey, sales, this is the list of account we're going to focus on. Everyone is going to put the effort together here and go and try to dig into this account and find something. I'm doing my job on marketing side, and you can pick up the same. And then the first question they will ask you is that, great, fantastic. But where are the contacts? How do I reach out into this account? Well, that's the concept of moving from, and we were just talking about it, right? From a lead source, a contact, to an account. You need to go into, this account has, and this is where marketing could probably help to collide all those insights, but it's going into that account model and thinking, this is the account I need to map and try to find several contacts, several persona, and try to reach out to them. I'm thinking here BDR, right? Where they will not, they will need to still do a bit of desktop research. The second it's related to this, is that don't expect them to jump on it and say, hey, thank you so much. But as the marketer, because you're already probably leading that program from a marketing perspective, you will take that. If we take again that example of industry approach, to do it in a bit of programmatic way, you create your ABM program, you create content that's related to that industry, and then you will create the script for the BDR, call days, call to action that are related to that list of account to target. And once those this is what you can share with the BDR if for them to do it by themselves. But once those leads will start flowing from your campaign, the conversion rate will be better, because they will be already educated on those accounts, educated on knowing what to do with those accounts and how to approach. Like, it's really a question of how do I start? Where do I start poking into those accounts? Well, if you tell them, well, based on the insight I've seen, it's in that industry, so we have content around that industry. Here you go, you can use that content. We have those case study. Here you go, you can use those case study. And then when the leads coming from your ABM campaign, they say, oh yeah, that account I know, and then up they go. So your conversion will be better. A third one, do not overcomplicate things. Or maybe it's me, but often less is more. Once I ran a campaign and I was like, okay, so I want to map all those persona. I need to have the content, and also I need to map to the 4 buying stages. And then so I ended up by having, like, for each persona and each topic and everything together, like 26 topics of interest for 14 persona, which is what's madness to put together. And then even to kind of go into, okay, which intent topic should I look at for this particular topic of interest, and how do I, it was just too much. Yeah, so simplify it, regroup. That's the word programmatic, right? Build at scale. And I cut it, those 2 kind of 6 program of things, so 6 persona, 6 type of journey. So simplify it a little bit. Think what is doable with the resources that you have. Try to reutilize what's already there. And then maybe the good thing, like maybe how to do it well, that I learned, use the results and show the results. One thing, like for 1 year, I was kind of using that list of accounts and running with the exact same program, so as a separate segment as the list of account that the sales gave me. And at the end of the year, I pulled and report by account, engagement by account, and what's the results in terms of pipe and opportunity, etc. And the results were obvious. It was tremendously better with that list of account that was put together based on some insights that we had, versus the guesswork of, no offense to sales, just the guesswork of, like, what should I put, where are my relationships? So yeah, show the results. You'll be able to show the results. So, like, use that account-based list, work on it together, and the results will be much better than whatever else you have done.
I love it. Show the results. That's such a good point. And I love that last mistake as well. I've made that mistake, and I've seen a lot of people make the mistake of going too far down the rabbit hole of personalization when it comes to ABM programs. No, I love that. Okay.
Have you read the State of ABM and APAC report yet? If you have, you'll know that 59% of marketing leaders are intending to increase their ABM investment in the coming year. Even bigger news is 0% of survey respondents are going to decrease their investment. It's an exciting time for ABM in the region. Discover the state of account-based marketing in APAC today. Download the full report at abm.xgrowth.com.au/report. That's abm.xgrowth.com.au/report.
Stephanie, I have a couple of rapid fire questions as well that I want to ask you. And the first question that I have is, what is one resource, and it could be a book, a blog, a podcast, a talk, whatever it is, that has had a profound impact on you, whether professionally or personally? What comes to mind?
It's one that a colleague of mine recommended. It's a podcast. The guy is American. Is called Chris Walker. He works for his company's Refine Lab. What I like with him is that it's actually talking about things that are what we talked about, like the attribution model. He talks about. Interestingly, the last one was saying it was about the attribution model in particular, when he was saying they were like asking their prospects, where did you heard about us? And it says the attribution model says organic search, and then the person when you talk to them says, oh, a reference from a colleague of mine, or the other option was LinkedIn postcard, and he keeps saying that over and over and over again, listing probably 50 different companies. So it's kind of powerful. It has good, like, it's just poking on that attribution model, and I think it's really where we need, and that's also linked to the account-based approach. So I think it's great. There's another guy from Heinz Marketing, Matt Heinz, who is also more talking about still along the size of attribution model, but a dimension. And I thought, again, some of its podcasts are really good.
I love it. Yeah, they're both really, really good thought leaders, both Chris Walker and Matt Heinz. Okay, question number 2. If you could only give one advice to B2B marketers, what would it be?
Probably to take an account-based approach because and work with data, use data. Use data. We have so many data available at our fingertips in marketing. We don't look at it that much. We do look at it, but we don't look at it that much. Data will help you to tell you half of the story. The rest you need to turn in and interpret it into insights.
Got it. Okay. Question number 3, and we've kind of touched on this. If there's anybody else, please mention it. But who are some of the influencers that you follow in the marketing space?
So the 2 that I mentioned,
we already
Chris
touched
Walker
back Chris Walker and Matt Heinz.
Yeah, will be probably those that I follow, and then I will look at my competitors and see what's happening. But that's really more for work. But from getting inspiration, starting with those 2.
Got it. Last question, Stephanie, is what's something that excites you about B2B today?
The ever-evolving technology and the fact that our jobs is getting more and more interesting every day. Once a former colleague of mine said, it has never been a better time to be a marketer thanks to that technology and the data. He said that 5 years ago. I think it's still valid. I love the fact that the technology is allowing us to be more sophisticated, to be more personalized, to do something more interesting, and to also, we get better insights, but we also do less of kind of the daunting and repetitive task. Machine learning and AI have tremendous opportunities. Not always be rainbow and unicorn, because you still have to, it's technology, right? So you have to test, and more often than not, it's not going to work the first time. But it's amazing the technology that we have at our fingertips. It keeps evolving. And I kind of feel, I don't know what it's going to come up, but I kind of feel that we are now at the stage where we need to have the next big phase. We had marketing automation probably 15 years ago, and then a kind of account-based coming like 7-8 years ago. There's the next one that's going to come up. Is there going to be propensity model, predictive? I think maybe that could be that one, the predictive part, and I can't wait to see that coming.
Stephanie, this has been a very insightful and awesome conversation. And I want to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really enjoyed our chat.
Thank you. It was really lovely chat too.
No, pleasure to absolute mine. And again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your insights. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are going to take a lot away from this chat. And yeah, again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Today's episode of Growth Colony was produced by Alexander Hipwell and Liza Maywald. It was edited by Dave Samito, with additional editing by Liza Maywald and music arrangement by Alexander and Liza. Special thanks to Tina Wabe. We couldn't make this show without you. Growth Colony is hosted by Shaheen Hoda, Director of Growth at XGrowth. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and give us a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Do you think you'd be a great guest, or just interested in a chat? Send through an email at podcast@xgrowth.com.au. That's podcast@xgrowth.com.au. That's all for now. We'll catch you next week, right here on Growth Colony.